So let's talk about one of the most frustrating feelings in the world. It's that gap. You know the one. The gap between knowing exactly what you need to do and actually, well, doing it. We're going to break down a system designed to cut right through that paralyzing hesitation. For good. You know this feeling, right? You've got to make that important call. Or maybe start writing that first paragraph. Or even just something as simple as getting up and going for a run. You know it's the right thing to do. The logic is crystal clear. But for some reason your body just isn't getting the memo. You're just stuck, frozen, waiting for some perfect moment that, let's be honest, never really shows up. To really get what's at stake when we freeze up like that, I want to tell you a story. It's about a man named Takeshi and how a tiny window of just 3 seconds, well, it changed everything for him.
Now, the thing about Takeshi is that he wasn't lazy or unskilled, not at all. In fact, he was this incredibly talented young guy who had spent years, years, mastering his craft. He had the skills, he'd done the prep work, he knew his stuff inside and out.
So one day, the big moment arrives. He's on this absolutely critical mission, and the stakes couldn't be higher. He needed to use all that training to protect a colleague. This was it. This was the moment he'd been preparing for his whole life.
But when the time came to act, he froze. And it had nothing to do with his ability. It was something else. It was this sudden, overwhelming fear of messing up. The fear of making a mistake just completely short-circuited all those years of practice.
And that's the kicker. That's all it took. 3 seconds. Just a tiny little gap of doubt and hesitation. And in those 3 seconds, the moment was gone. He failed. It's a pretty brutal reminder of how a tiny pause can have absolutely massive consequences. You know, this problem that Takeshi had, it's not new, not by a long shot. In fact, the ancient samurai warriors built their entire philosophy around defeating this one enemy, hesitation. They knew that in a sword fight, that little gap between thinking and acting, well, it's fatal. And what's so brilliant is how they thought about it. They saw 2 different states of mind. The first is Udan, which they called the slumber. That's it. That's the gap, the pause, that foggy state where you know what to do but you don't do it. It's where all our hesitation lives. And then there's the ideal state, Ketsudan. That means the cut. It's the act of just slicing through all that doubt so that knowing and doing become one single fluid motion.
So let's be really clear here. Ketsudan is way more than just making a decision. It's the fusion of the decision and the action into one single immediate moment. It's all about erasing that dangerous little gap where all our overthinking and fear loves to hide.
And what's absolutely fascinating is that this ancient samurai wisdom lines up perfectly with modern neuroscience. There is a very real, biological reason why we freeze, why we get stuck in that state of Udan. And it's all happening right inside your brain.
Okay, so here's what's going on. When you're facing something uncomfortable, like making that phone call, your amygdala, which is basically the brain's ancient alarm system, it just freaks out. It can't tell the difference between social anxiety and a lion, so it floods your system with fight-or-flight hormones. And here's the crazy part. That ancient survival response hijacks all your brain's resources, and it basically shuts down your prefrontal cortex, your smart, rational, thinking brain. So your panic brain literally takes your thinking brain offline. And that right there is the whole problem, isn't it? Your brain is using an ancient survival tool to deal with a modern social fear, and it's just not helpful. That feeling of being totally frozen, yeah, that's a defense mechanism that's being completely misapplied to your to-do list.
All right, so we've got the story, we've got the science. The big question is, how do we actually do this Ketsudan thing? How do we fight back against that brain hijack? Well, the trick is to act before your brain even gets the chance to start overthinking. And that gives you a very, very small window, about 3 seconds.
So here's the technique, and it's so simple it's brilliant. It's the 3-second rule. Step 1, you decide once. That's it. No waffling, no second guessing. Step 2, the second you have the thought or impulse to do it, you give yourself a 3-second countdown to physically move. And step 3, you don't have to do the whole big scary thing, you just have to take the first tiny micro step. Pick up your keys, open the laptop, put on one running shoe. That tiny action short-circuits that whole amygdala hijack before it can even get going.
This quote really is the mantra for the whole system. The decision is final. You don't get to negotiate with your brain, you don't rationalize, you don't make excuses. You already made the call, now you just execute. It's about honoring that decision that you already made. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. That tiny little gap, that 3-second window between when you know you should do something and when you actually do it, that's where your potential either lives or dies. So the next time you feel that hesitation creeping in, remember, you've got a choice. You've got 3 seconds to cut through the doubt. The only question is, what are you going to do with them?